Mamuch, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jack. I really appreciate coming on board.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. I want to start, we're going to go deep to start with. When I say the word leader, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Somebody that puts it upon themselves to support people, or people that need guidance or support. And I think somebody needs to step out of their comfort zone and be that person. And I think since a young age, I've always had that attribute of speaking up and being able to be vocal about how I'm feeling or how things should be done. So yeah, I think I've been able to learn a lot from people around me. I've had really good role models that I could learn from and lean on to learn what it is to be a leader. So yeah, that's kind of how I would define being a leader, is really stepping out of your comfort zone and being able to be that person that people can look up to, rely on.
Do you consider yourself a leader?
I would say so, yeah, definitely. Just from the perspective of, what I've been able to accomplish and also the people that obviously look up to me now as a role model.
Was that a point in your life where you turned around and went, oh, I am leading? Or is it just something that gradually happened and then you felt like a leader?
I think, yeah, I've always had that, it was always natural for me. People would always ask me for advice, or people they were unexpecting me to kind of do everything. I think, when I was 13, because I was an early child. So as an early child, I think it was myself and my mum for a very long time. And then I think, from those little things, I think, having had that focus on myself, I was able to always be secure in myself. So that I was able to, be that person for a lot of young people in my age group, to kind of be like, you can do it yourself as well. I remember the very first moment where we created a basketball team, and we wanted to enter into the first South Sudanese-Australian basketball tournament, and I think it was the first time they did an under-16s group. So having to collect all the people that would join our team, and then organizing things like accommodation, organizing uniforms, organizing sponsors. I was doing that at a very young age, and I think it was just because I had the ability to speak. I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with speaking to people, but I've always had that given talent, just being able to speak to people. So yeah, I think those were my early days in terms of trying to become a natural leader. My mom is also very much a leader as well. So I think having had somebody like her growing up, she was always a leader in the church. And she would set up things like fundraisers for the church. She would lead the choir or the women's choir group. So yeah, I've always, had somebody that I've been able to look up to become a leader. Yeah.
Nice. And how'd you go with the basketball tournament?
Yeah. Well, we went superb. We were able to get the uniforms, we got the accommodation, and a lot of it was sponsored, which is really good. And then also, we ended up losing in the semi-finals, but for our first time and all the different teammates that we had, I think it was very successful because, we had some long life friendships from that. So.
Nice. Did you continue year on year?
Yeah. We continued year on year. And then I think it was 2017 when we all joined, a lot of us joined Red Root, which was more formalized, more established, better structured. And so, yeah, we were able to obviously go under the guidance of James Kerr, who's also been another pivotal person in my life and in a lot of other people's lives as well. So, yeah, it took the pressure off me a little bit. Then I was able to kind of be a kid again. So I really enjoyed that part too.
Yeah, it's a big step being a 16-year-old and going out to businesses and asking for money to sponsor this basketball team that you're starting. You say your mum was a big influence. Are there any traits or advice that she's given you that you've taken on and you still use today?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's be confident in yourself. I think confidence is huge. I've always been a very confident young person, regardless of the circumstances. That's definitely something. And then I think obviously put God first as well, and love everyone. And, you know, that was also a quote from somebody that most recently just passed. His name was Mulai, and he was a young person that was, you know, very much a leader as well. So, yeah, some of those early traits that I learned, I guess, was, having confidence and also being able to have the ability to love everyone, but also put God first as well.
I'm sorry to hear about your friend. Loving everybody, I think that's a great quote. Like, everybody should live by that, definitely. So you moved to Australia, or you were a refugee?
Yep.
At what age did you move to Australia?
So about 4 or 5 years old. I came from a small refugee camp in Ethiopia, Gambela. It's called Iteng Refugee Camp. It was my mom, dad, and myself. And my family over here in Australia. My uncle David, he was the one who filed for us to get to, I guess, come to Australia. I don't know the whole process even now, but super grateful to him. And obviously he took us in, picked us up from the airport. We lived with their family for a year until we were able to obviously get sorted over here in Australia. Find our own house, and so we were living all together. It was I think when I look back, I always think about, what was the reason that God obviously brought myself here, and looking at the sacrifices that my mom and dad made for me to obviously come to Australia. And it was obviously for an opportunity to do something with yourself, whether it's education, whether it's working, or just the ability to obviously have a better life. So I think, super grateful to my parents for getting us to Australia. But now the hard part is on me to deliver, I guess.
So that confidence, because confidence is very hard. And like you've experienced it, and you said during that like when you were putting the basketball team together, you were the one that stepped it up. Any advice for young people out there that, do want to make something of themselves or take opportunities on, but are lacking that confidence?
I think, growing up as an only child, I kind of had to be confident because I didn't have, siblings at home that could, I think support me or tell me I can do it. So I kind of had to, have that mindset of, you have to build your confidence, and also you have to make sure that no matter what people say to you or what people do to you, you have confidence in yourself to be able to always get back up. And so, like, one of the biggest words that I learnt, in primary school values was resilience. That was probably one of my favorite values, because to be able to be resilient is to be able to get back up on your feet no matter what happens. And I think that's been able to, continuously help build my confidence, because I've had that resilience. Every time that I've gone through something, my confidence has gotten even better and better and better. And I think it's just continued to build. So what I would say to young people is, just because something goes wrong, that doesn't mean that things aren't going to get better again. And as you face more challenges and as you get past those challenges, you start to develop and you start to understand that not everything is going to be the end. There's always going to be a better day, a better week, a better month, and a better year. But you have to be resilient enough to be like, this is not the end for me. So I think that's what I would say to people is, go through the journey, but know that you have people around you. I think that's something that people don't use enough. And even if you are going through something bad, like, you can call your mom, you can call your dad. Like, these are people that love you, your friends as well, and people around you. So I think, when building up yourself as a young person, don't take it upon yourself to do everything yourself. That's something that I've learned a lot, is that yes, you may be confident that, I can do things myself, but when that doesn't happen, then this is when you start to use that support network around you to get past those phases.
So as you're going through your life and you're going through those periods of, I guess, failing and then building that resilience, is there anything in those moments where you're reflecting? Like, do you journal about it, or you just think about it, or as you said, you're like, I guess, rely on God and use Him as a guidance as well?
Yeah. Very good question. I think one of the biggest things that I do, I go for runs, and I'm also obviously playing sports. So, that's something that I will also encourage a lot of people, is to find something, a physical activity that you love doing, because sometimes it's good to not think about things. Sometimes it's good to just enjoy living, enjoy taking in, the fresh air. And then, from there on, you're going to be able to appreciate and have more gratitude for the things that you do have. So that's something that I do. And at the moment, I'm also doing a lot more reading as well. I'm finding that reading books is really, it's being able to just immerse yourself in a book and read other people's journeys. I think, as a young person, because of social media these days, we want everything to happen immediately. And the reality is it's not going to happen that way. You need to look at, and this is why reading books is so good, because you get to read people's journeys as opposed to somebody telling you can get rich quick or something like that. Actually look at what the journey looked like for them. Some of these people that are rich and living well and things like that, they've had their struggles as well. But because of social media, we're only seeing the best parts.
Yeah. Any books you'd recommend?
At the moment, I'm reading The Diary of a CEO.
Okay.
And I also watch a lot of podcasts, his podcast, and just how they've been able to obviously bring in a lot of different people. I think those types of things are really good. And then I've also got mentors as well. Mentors have been huge for me. Obviously, as a first generation South Sudanese-Australian, there's not as many people in my community that have gotten to where I want to get to. So I need to, find people that believe in me, want to hear about my story and want to see me succeed and grow. And I've had, a lot of people that care about me now, that, want to go on the journey with me, want to give me that guidance, and it's things like just catching up for a coffee, because, these people, they understand how the Australian system works. They understand how you can become successful here. Sometimes it's not so much about where you start, but so much about the journey and where you're going to end up. And it's, having those types of people around you that can help support you. I was talking about, obviously, before about, sometimes you might have a down day. Well, I catch up with my mentors and tell them about, I'm feeling burnout, or I'm feeling this. Having those types of people, they help build you as well.
Before we get into what you're doing now, how do you go about finding mentors, or how have you gone about finding mentors in the past?
Yep. Very good question. I think one of the biggest things that I've done is obviously is community sports. I think community sports is such a great way to connect with people, because the reason why I say it's such a good, because it's a space where, it's all about the sport, but it's what else comes with the sport, and that's the community. I look back to how I first got into sports, right? It was through, I used to go across the road. So I used to live in Hampton East, and there was a bunch of flats there. And across the road was Boss James Reserve, which was the Hampton Football Rovers football club. And I used to just walk there, go look at the football, what's going on here and things like that. And, the people there saw me, and they saw that I used to come every weekend. And then, I think a week later, two of them came to my doorstep and said, "Hey, Mamuch, would you like to play football?" And that's how I got into community sports, right? Is that they saw a young person that lives in the commission flats that can benefit from sports, but also benefit from a community. So that's how I was able to find my mentors, is through community sports. But there's loads of different ways, depending on the type of person that you are, depending on the type of environments that you surround yourself with. I think that's the first step, is finding yourself a place where you feel comfortable, and being able to build relationships with those people that can help you find the right mentor. Whether what field you want to get into, are you an artist? Are you into education? Are you into sports? Those are the types of environments you need to surround yourself with that will eventually lead you to a mentor.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like a lot of people might just hear sports and get turned away from doing that. But like you said, there's so many different ways you can do it. And you might think one way is for you, try it, not like it. But what I'd recommend is just go out and find something else.
Yeah.
Keep looking.
Exactly.
So what are you doing now? Let's talk about NextGen.
Yeah. So, I got to start from the journey. So, in 2019, I just finished school, and I didn't want to know what I wanted to do with myself. I was very much into my basketball at this stage, and I obviously wanted to go to college and go to Division I college and try and make NBA. That was obviously my goal at that stage. But I think COVID was obviously a blessing in disguise for me, because one, it was able to really allow me to find myself and who I wanted to become. And it was during COVID, unfortunately, rest in peace, Abraham Hot Young, but he was another person that I looked up to as a role model. And he played a big part in my life because he always, we call them OGs. They used to just give us advice about obviously things that they did and things that they don't want us to do. So they would always tell us things like, don't follow what we did, be better. And I listened to that a lot. And then his passing really instilled something in me. I went off social media for 6 months, and I really just wanted to help community at this stage in my life. I really wanted to do something for the community. I've always had that calling. I've always had that ability. I've always had that love for the community, but I just didn't know what to do. And so his passing helped me, start to vision what helping the community would look like. And so I started to gather a bunch of my friends that were also passionate about community. And so together we came together and, we started to formulate NextGen Unite. I went on my computer and just started to put ideas of, what works for the community, what issues do we need to, fix. And so that's kind of where the name came from, is that we realized that our community is struggling because we're not united. And so I thought that the best way to be able to do that is by building the next generation to unite, because we don't have, the problems that our parents had back home, which, often came with tribalism. And over here in Australia, you judge people for who they are, and the things that they do. So we wanted to instill that into our organization, and we wanted to build our next generation of young people. And so that's where the idea of NextGen Unite came. And in 2021, was in July, is when we birthed the organization. And that came with its own set of challenges. I used to reach out to my uncles. I reached out to a lot of different people to build the organization, because I had no idea what to do. I'm fresh out of school, 18 years old, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So the very first person that I reached out to was, his name was Sean Jackson. And he was one of the founders of Team Sports for All, which is an organization that supports disadvantaged communities by providing sports, and I was the very first recipient of that organization. So I reached out to him and went over to him, and I told him, what I wanted to do for the community and how I wanted to build an organization. And he gave me the right direction. And he also funded our very first MacBook. He's like, you need documents, you need to be able to do this sort of stuff. And he sponsored that. We went to the shops together, went to the Apple and bought it together. So he's been a pivotal part of my entire journey. And this is why I say, it's funny how things come back around, because we obviously didn't speak to each other for so long, but community, and obviously his impact in my life brought me back to him because I saw what he did for me. So yeah, and then obviously once that happened, I started to obviously document a lot of things. I started to, build the organization from the ground up. And funnily enough, like our very first initiative was supporting South Sudanese basketball organizations in South Sudan, in Uganda, and Kenya. And so we gathered 220 basketball shoes, and this was during COVID. So people would just give me their shoes. And then we also got 50 basketballs. And we sent those basketball shoes over to those 3 different countries and supported some organizations there. And then it was funny because we didn't get registered as an organization until 2023.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because I had no idea. Like I was, so this was such a new journey for me. So, but through that I was able to, so my cousin Guy, he's a lawyer at Landers and Rogers. And so I reached out to Guy, I'm like, Guy, how do we get registered as a company and stuff like that? And he's like, Mamuch, this is what I want you to do. Email us Landers and Rogers, say you want to seek our help. And then, we got approved for pro bono assistance. And that's what led us to getting our non-profit organization started. So things like what type of company do we want? What type of charity do we want to be? We had to build a constitution. We had to have board directors and all these other different things that come with building a company or organization. And then also, the benefit of obviously connecting with a mid-tier firm like Landers and Rogers was that they've obviously got relationships with other different firms. And so we wanted to obviously get charity status, right? So we got connected with Pitchers and Partners, and they were able to help us get our charity status, and they were also able to help us get DGR status, which is like tax deductible donations and things like that. So now we were in the, we took a big step. So now we were an organization that had credibility, that had all the right legal, had all the right people on board and right support. And so we were able to, get our first funding from the Department of Justice and Community Safety. And obviously it was, around particularly Department of Justice and Community Safety is around obviously young people in youth justice. And at that time, there was a lot of problems with our community with, gang violence and young people going into the youth justice system. We were on the news often, and they were narrating our story, and I didn't like that. So, together with my friends, we're like, how can we change the narrative of our community? Because there's so many people doing so many different good things, but we're not getting those things covered on the news. So we came together and we're like, Australian rules football would be the way. One, because, there were so many South Sudanese players in the AFL. 2, because we wanted to show the Australian community that the South Sudanese community has also integrated, and we are Australian as well. We love the game too. So, and then 3 was also for a chance for the Australian and the South Sudanese community to come together through football. And so we were able to run the first South Sudanese-Australian Community Football Day. And that was a huge success.
When was that?
That was in 2023,
Nice.
In October. And it was funny because we organized it in 6 weeks.
Yeah, okay.
6 weeks. And, again, and this was funny because the person that, has been a big part and a big pioneer within our organization, his name is Michael Doble. And the reason why he met with me, because he reached out to me saying that they wanted to do some programs at St. Kevin's Football Club, where they get young people, they bring them into the club, they get them to do stuff, and they help them support with their education. They help give them mentorship, and help them obviously just connect into a community. And so that was obviously his idea, that he wanted to expand with our organization. But then obviously I gave him the idea around how we wanted to do the first South Sudanese-Australian Community Football Day. And, he was a huge help with that. So we started to build that. And in 6 weeks, we were able to raise $25,000 in sponsorship, which was huge. And that was, again, credit to Michael. And he was able to obviously help connect us with his network and the people that have been supporting, the Kempford's Football Club. And they've been a huge supporter of us. So, and then through that, we were able to connect with Jeremy Heffernan, who's also another big person that supports our organization. He does all of our uniforms. And he was able to help us get media coverage as well. So building all that together and putting those all different things together, I started to realize that I was really good at networking. And I was really able to build really strong relationships with these people that wanted to give back to the community. And obviously these people have also had South Sudanese people that have impacted their lives. And so this is when I started to realize is that if we can start to bring people together, then we can start to collaborate and work together to help better our community. And so I think it was October 8th, 2023, was when we had the first South Sudanese-Australian Community Football Day. We had 3 different teams from the southeast and 3 different teams from the western suburbs, because at that time, those were the 2 kind of groups that weren't united and were very divided. And so young people had problems with people in the west and young people had people with problems in the east. But together through this initiative, we were able to unite. And so we had an under-18s team, a women's team, and a men's team. And we had 132 players play, which was huge, and they were mostly South Sudanese. We had also a couple of different Australian people also play. And so, that was very huge for us. And then also, I think one of the biggest advantages we had as well was that we had South Sudanese-Australian football players that were in the Australian Football League play. One played and then the others coached. And I think to see, obviously they're in their own journey, they're in their own careers, but to see them obviously give back as well, in that aspect was huge for the community, because some of the things that they were saying, it was very difficult to connect with community, but through our organization and through this football carnival, they were able to give back to community in that way. So, and obviously that led to really good media coverage. So Channel 9 covered us. Xander Maguire, he was the one who covered that. So that was huge for us. And, I think one of the greatest things that he did was that he narrated our community in the way that it should be narrated. It was a tight-knit group. They were advocating for mental health. And it's not to say that there's not challenges in our community, but it's to say that let's celebrate the things that they're doing well. Because if we continue to put the positives, then people are going to start to see the positives and how we can also start to help where the negative areas are in a different way. So that was such a successful event for us. And that had led us to just continue to build our organization across the board.
Epic. So good. You talked about when you were setting up the business and you had to do your mission statements and all that sort of stuff. Like, what is the mission statement for NextGen?
So our mission statement is to help build the next generation of South Sudanese Australians to successfully integrate into the Australian society and be contributing factors in the community.
Nice. Love it. And it just goes to show somebody like yourself, who is a leader and a great networker and a strong message, and what you can actually achieve. I've got a lot of people in my community who want to build organisations like yours, and they're from different parts of the world and are connecting with their community here in Melbourne, but they just don't know where to start. Like, they can see there's issues within, whatever community they're from, and they want to bring everybody together, and pretty much do what you're doing, and show the positives and bring that positive aspect and help people live a healthier, happy life and with purpose as well. So what would you recommend to those people out there? They want to start a community. Where should they start? What should they think about?
I'd say be brave and take that next step. I look back now and, looking at the journey, I just started. That's what you need to do. Just start. And through that journey, what you'll find is that you're going to find people that believe in you, that believe in your vision. And when you start to get those people around you, it becomes a lot easier to continue to build. But the very first step is just starting. Because if I didn't start back then, right, and I started later on, I wouldn't have learnt all those different things that I've learnt. I wouldn't have failed and succeeded and failed and succeeded and just keep failing, because the more that you fail and the more that you fail is the more that you learn. And the more that you learn helps you build to become successful. And it's not to say that I'm successful. It's not to say that our organization is successful. What it's to say is that we're on that journey. And it wouldn't have happened until you begin. So what I would say to a lot of people is that don't worry about what your friends are doing. Don't worry about what your family's doing. Don't worry about all these other people, because it's about you. You know, put yourself first, right? Because people already look at you in some sort of way. People are going to judge you. People are going to do this. People are going to try to push you down. But at the end of the day, if you believe in something and you want to do something, don't let people around you stop you from doing that. Just take that first step and do it.
Love that. And just trying to remove that noise and just starting. But you started at a very young age. Like, it's very impressive. Like, you've left school and then just started it. Like you said, you failed a couple of times. Any failures that you wish you had have known? Like, obviously you want to fail so you learn, but if these people starting their own communities, anything you'd tell them to avoid or to do or not to do or anything like that?
I think what I would say is communication. I think, like, obviously just communicating with different people, you know, within your team, within your volunteers, within, you know, your stakeholders, the people that are supporting the organization and things like that. I think, you know, we could have done a better job of building stronger relationships, because one of the things that I learned is that a lot of people fall along the way as well. You know, obviously they get caught up in their own lives and things that are going on in their lives. But I think one of the things that you can always do better is always try and bring people along with the journey as well, and let them know that you're there for them and what they're doing in their lives as well. I was so focused on myself and obviously the organization that sometimes I neglected the people along the journey. And I think, you know, that's something that I've learned now, is that, you know, you really got to also appreciate the people that are helping you along the journey as well. And don't forget what they've done for you.
It's very insightful. Right? Not many people can stop and notice that. How have you developed? Is that a skill, or is that just something you've, I guess, been mentored into? Like, it takes a lot of work to realize that you are, I guess, failing and, you know, not communicating well. How have you learnt that?
I think just through my experiences, you know, and I think, again, like, your experience is everything, right? Because if you're not learning from your experiences, then you're not building yourself. And, you know, sometimes you need to also reflect on yourself and the things that you've done and the things that you do in order for yourself to, you know, take a step back, and then you can go forward again. You know, and I've done that a lot of times, you know, where we're building so fast, but I'll put the brakes on it just because there's things that are not going well internally. Or, you know, so it's like, let me first because we know we can succeed when we're at our highest, right? But you don't want to be at your highest and then also fail, because now you have more attention on you, right? So what I do is, like, let's get here. Let's build first what we need to do here. And people might not be seeing what you guys are doing and stuff like that behind the scenes, but it's not for them to see, right? It's for you guys internally to be able to be like, let's fix these problems first. So that's what I would encourage, is just because you take some steps back, that doesn't mean you can't get back to where you guys want to get to. It just means that you're focusing on what you need to focus on.
How many people in the team now?
So we've got 5 board members, and they're very supportive. We only just got them on board this year, like in terms of having a proper structure. I'm the CEO, and then I you know, we have meetings with them every bi-monthly, and that's just for me to give board reports, things like finances, things like operations, but they're there to support you. support the organization grow at a steady rate. So I think that's probably been, one of the most impactful things in our organization now is that we have, a board of governance that can, help us with the governance piece, but also in terms of keeping me accountable, because sometimes when, you're the face or you're the leader, and there's not many people that can, I guess, challenge you, that's important to have, because I started to get into a position where like every decision that I made and the teams were like, oh, why is he making these decisions? And so I was like, okay, guys, let's get a board so that I'm not constantly making decisions. And at least if I do make those decisions, I have people that can hold me accountable to those decisions. So that's something. And then we have about, I would say, 10 volunteers that help across the board that are consistent. And then at the moment, we also have 2 paid staff, myself and a project officer. And then we have, I think, like 5 people that are like on the advisory board as well. And so they just give advice to me as well, give advice on how we can do things better, how we can build the organization. So yeah, about 20 people, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess this is a boring business question, but maybe not, because it might go into the finding mentors as well. How do you go about, I guess, making sure that you have the right people around you within the organisation? Like, how did you go about picking the board members, like the people that work with you? Because everybody's got advice, but how do you take that advice? And then is that a good advice? Do you keep those people around? How did you go about that?
It was challenging. It's challenging in all honesty. But I think, like, from the very first like Australian football day, that's kind of when I knew, because the thing is, it's like it takes a long time to build those types of relationships. But for instance, let's say the board, one of my mentors was able to help me come up with the skills matrix, So I was able to be like, okay, what skills do we need in order for our organization to grow? So, on our board, we have an ex-AFL football player, and he works at Salesforce. And then we have, a partner at KPMG, which is an accounting firm. So that's like, insurance, that's like accountants, audits, that sort of stuff, that's important. And then we have a lawyer, who's a barrister. And so, and then there's myself. So it's like, within that board, you need to be able to have people that bring in different skills, that bring in different networks, that can help keep the organization accountable, but it can also help the organization grow. Then you have your, let's say, staff. And then with your staff, like I've been caught up sometimes in hiring my friends, and I think that's probably a mistake that sometimes you make, but it's like, obviously you want to be able to give opportunities to those that have been there from the beginning. And then I think the other thing as well is that I think now that we have an organization, we have a business, I think we need to do things above, you need to be professional across the board. And that's something that I'm learning as well continuously, is that being as professional as you can will lead to success. Sometimes it's not about just building around your friends, but building around people that want to help the organization grow or can help the organization grow based off of skill set, based off of experience, those types of things. So, and then you have your volunteers. I think your volunteers are people that just want to give back, and with your volunteers, it's like, also again, what skills can they bring in? What capacity do they want to be able to help? How many hours can they give? So that's kind of where I kind of look at things like there's levels in terms of, each different person obviously brings in something different, but each different category within the organization can bring in different skill sets to the organization. So that's kind of what I'm really looking at now, is the professional side of things, and not so much opposed to just looking at friends, but looking at in the broader community, because what I found now is that so many people want to help, so many people that want to give to the organization, and those people are going to probably give a lot more effort because they're reaching out to you as opposed to you just giving opportunities to your friends.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, like skills, focusing on the skills, not just advice, because everybody's got advice, but yeah, looking at the skills, making sure they got the back catalogue to back up those skills and they can do what they do, do what they'd said. You've done so much in just, I feel like it's such a small little time. Do you ever sit back and reflect on what you've achieved? Because it is, I feel like you've done a lot in just 2003 maybe. Do you feel like it's a whirlwind, or do you feel like you're in control and you're maintaining a good path and all that sort of stuff?
It's a good question. I think now I'm starting to do that. But throughout the journey, I wasn't doing that. Because I was so confident that I could do it, you know? I was so confident that I was going to build this fast. I was so confident that these things were going to happen. But like, as you've said now, like now that I'm reflecting, I'm able to have more gratitude. And I'm also able to have more appreciation for the journey, for the things that I've been able to accomplish, because now that's allowed me to know that things are going to happen, and I don't need to go 1,000 miles an hour, which I'm the type of person to go 1,000 miles an hour. But now, because all these things have happened, now that I'm able to reflect upon those things, I know that it's going to continue to happen. But I want to do it to the best of my abilities. I don't want to just do things just to do things anymore. I want to do things because I know that I can give it my all, and I know if I give a well done, a well polished product, that's going to sell. So having now reflected on everything that I've been able to do in that short period, I'm able to just learn so much, because I haven't been doing that throughout that journey. And I think that comes with, obviously, as you were saying, like when you're a young man, I don't think you get to appreciate the journey enough. And that's what I was saying before, like why I'm starting to read books now. I'm starting to, have conversations with my mentors. I'm starting to realize that, life's about a journey, but in my eyes, I was, part of the reason I felt so much pressure on myself is like, I have a single mom that's at home, that lives in a 3-bedroom house. And there's 8 children, or there's 7 of us. So, I got my 2 siblings, which my mom birthed. And, she said to me that I gave those kids for you. You know what I mean? I had those kids for you because I didn't want you to be alone in this world. And, so having my little brother and my little sister. And then on top of that, my mom also, she's that type of person where, somebody had asked her, would you take these kids on? Because I'm not able to look after my kids. So Child Protection gave another 3 kids on top of the 2 already, So now there's 6 of them in the house. I'm obviously not in the house anymore, but it's like that type of pressure on me. I'm like, there's nobody else. I don't have, I'm not going to I'm not going to inherit money. I'm not going to inherit nothing, So it's like I have to build everything. But now that I've obviously been able to know that I can do all those things, I'm able to be like, Mum, university is going well. Mum, the organizations are going well. How are you guys going? How is the kids going? How they're going in school. I'm able to just, have some sort of confidence now in the journey. I'm also to have confidence in able to trust my mum to be able to do those things. And I'm not going to be able to feel guilty about it anymore. I feel guilt-free now, because even like during those times, like, that journey when I was starting the organization, I wasn't getting paid. I didn't get paid until 2024, so that was like, but I was working double shifts. I was working, I had my job at Woolworths from 6 to 12. And then I would have my night shift, so I was really working to support my mom and my family. But these are things people don't know, people think things just happen, but so many things happen behind the scenes. So I think, just being able to obviously appreciate the journey is something that I've really learnt, because people only judge you from what they see. But, having the ability to reflect on yourself and just look at everything that is going on in your life, your relationships with your friends, your relationships with the community, your relationships with your family. You get caught up so much in everything that you're doing that you forget about those things. So now I'm able to be in a place now where I'm able to reflect on just, obviously the organization and, my own journey, but also everything else that also falls in that.
Yeah, but I think that time is necessary where you focus on yourself and you're just almost got the blinders on and just doing what you want. But like you said, you've got to have that strong message behind that to keep going and let everybody know this is what I'm doing.
Yep.
Otherwise, everybody's just like, oh, forget about that guy because he's just gone off on his own and doesn't talk to anybody. So having that message definitely helps everybody understand what you're doing. But surely there was times where you just felt like, I don't want to do this. This is too hard.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you recall any of those times? And I guess what's the internal dialogue, or did you reach out to other people to help you move forwards? What's that conversation like?
Yep. Very good question. I think most recently on it happened, I think. And that's kind of where I've started to get into that phase now. Like, I'm making more money than I've ever made in my entire life. Like, things are going well for me. I'm in high demand. Like, I'm getting speaking gigs, I'm building relationships with schools. I'm building relationships with politicians. I'm building relationships with philanthropists. I'm building all these things. But for some reason, I don't know what it is. My fire stopped. My fire is going out. Even though all these great things are happening in my life, my mental wasn't there. So very good question is, how was I able to get past that? It was my friends, my family. But it's because I was able to speak out. I was able to tell my mom, I'm not because I'm living by myself, which is also another, another problem as well, because it's like you're constantly in your mind. You're constantly thinking about everything. And sometimes you don't know which step to take first. But my first step was just telling my mom. And then I told my friends, and I told, people in my organization. I told, my mentors as well. And they were all able to rally around me, tell me the things that I needed to hear, tell me to take a break, tell me to do this. And, so I was able to get the right advice. And that was something that, in all honesty, I grew up I grew up as a very strong-willed person. My will is my everything. But now that I had all this pressure on myself, pressure that I put upon myself, I didn't know, because there was no coping mechanisms. There was no, all these things that could help me get past that phase. That's when I started to realize just how important your mental health is. Because you get so caught up in everything else, but you forget to take care of yourself first. And that's what happens when you're in the community space sometimes, is that you get caught up in everything else, and everybody wants to help. Everybody wants help from you, and they want you to talk to their mom. They want you to talk to their kid. They want you to help them out. And I was such a yes man that I was saying yes to everything. And so I started to become I was just so focused on my work that I started to forget about myself. And that happened most recently. I'm only just started to get back up on my feet, in terms of locking in again. That phase did happen to me. But also, I think I also started to, swim. I started to run again. Started to go to the gym, just recover a lot. Put my schedules together, make sure that I'm organized in my life. I know what I'm doing. I think that was definitely a critical phase of my life that I needed to go through in order for me to continue to build.
Definitely. So what's one thing now that it's like a non-negotiable, that you have to do every day?
Look after yourself first.
What's that look like for you?
If you can't take on something, say no. Don't be afraid to say no. People are going to judge you regardless. But, you know, in order for people to see the best version of yourself, you need to take care of yourself first. That's definitely the advice that I'd give to anybody that's, you know, in any circumstances, whether you're working, school, whatever it is. Look after yourself first, because the people that you're going to hurt the most is the people around you if you're not the best version of yourself. So and it's not selfish to do that. I think also don't feel guilty to look after yourself first. You know, because I used to feel guilty about trying to look after myself first. You know, I used to think guilty in that sense, because I'm like, oh, I'm secure, I'm good, I don't need help. You know, I know what I'm doing. You know, all those types of things. But like, now that it's happened to me, I'll tell you right now, like, make sure you look after yourself first, because you're gonna be able to give the best version of yourself to everybody around you.
I think that's a very hard lesson to learn for a lot of people. Like, a lot of my clients, when I work with them with the PT business, they just feel guilty for taking an hour to work on themselves in a gym. But yeah, I 100% agree. If you can focus on your health, become the best version of yourself, everything else is going to just improve. What's a day look like now? So, you know, tomorrow, what's that tomorrow going to look like? And then compared to, I guess, like that later 2023, like just after you've had the football game and all that sort of stuff, the business is set up properly, all that sort of stuff, like those early days, what does a day look like then? And then compared to tomorrow?
Yep. I think, yeah, back then, like, I was very much a solo man. Like, I'd go pick up the uniforms, I'd talk to the sponsors, I would, you know, write up grants, look at the finances, like, just everything, you know. I think that was just running around like a headless chook at that stage. And then I think, yeah, so like it would be, let's say on a Monday, I'd catch up with a potential sponsor. I would, you know, go back to the office, you know, write up some proposals, connect with another person that could help us out. So I was very much in the solo phase at that period, as opposed to now, it's like I have a team that I can delegate different tasks to. And I think back then I did have a team, but I don't know, for some reason I had that thing like, you know, I felt like I could do it better than them, you know? And I think the reason why I had that is like, well, I was the type of person, like, you know, like, obviously this is my vision, you know, and like everybody else has so many other things going on in their lives that I didn't want to take that time away from them in order to focus on themselves and stuff. But, you know, having realized now, like, I could have done so much better in delegating so many of those different roles. But, and again, you asked before, like, that's a leader needs to be able to acknowledge those types of things, because that's obviously going to be able to help build the organization and build better teams. And that's what I'm really focused on now, is really being able to build the best team I can. You know, supporting my staff, supporting my volunteers, you know, working with my my board to help build myself and my skills. Like, I'm enrolling in a lot more, I guess, like workshops, like the Australian Company Institution Directors, like things like that. Like, I'm really trying to build my skill set as well, because I don't have every skill, you know. So I'm really trying to make sure that I'm building myself up. But at the same time, I'm also making sure that I'm helping support and build my organization and the team within that.
That delegation is a hard thing to learn, and letting go of perfection. I'm glad you brought it up, because one of the people I was talking to who want to create a community and help other people within their own community, one of the biggest things holding her back is that delegation or perfection. Like, it has to be perfect before I start. And I've got to take my own advice as well. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You just got to start like you did. So what would you say to that other, like that girl that wants to start, but she's like, oh, it has to be perfect before I start? What would you say?
There's no such thing as perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. Like, you can get it to the best that you want it to look, but it will never be perfect, because there's always going to be people that think that it can be better, right? There's always people that are going to give you advice on, you could have done this better. So what I would say is that believe in yourself and trust in your team that they have the best interest to build the organization or the business to get to that next level. So, and also remember that they're on this journey with you as well. So if they're going to be on that journey, you're going to have to also allow them to make mistakes, also fail, same way that you failed time and time again. So that's something that I would definitely say. And if I was able to do that again, I would obviously be able to say that, trust in your team, trust in the people around you, allow them to make mistakes, have better communication with them, tell them how you want it to look like, have those types of conversations, have those types of meetings, because the more that you prepare them, the better that they're going to be able to execute.
That's good advice. I'm going to take that because at the moment I'm doing all this by myself, but I want to start delegating a lot of the editing and all that sort of stuff. And I'm just like, they're not going to be able to do it how I want it. But again, they've got to learn how I want it. And the only way to do that is fail a little bit. So good advice.
Yeah, because I think, as I was saying before, I wanted everything to look the way that I wanted it to look, right? But it's it's no longer about you anymore. That's something that I've realized now. Even now, I could get fired as the CEO of NextGen Unite. You know what I mean? So now it's it's no longer about you. So if that is the case, right, how are you going to make sure that you are supporting those people that might be the next generation of leaders, or that might be the next CEO? How do you want to leave your legacy behind? You know what I mean? So having reflected upon all that, you need to trust the people around you, because you're going to be stuck in that phase. It's me, I, instead of we. So, I think those are the types of things that I've started to remove now. It's I or me, and put we now, because it's we're all responsible for this. Whether you're a volunteer, whether you're a board member, whether you're a paid staff, we're all in this together. And everybody is looking at us as such. They're not looking at that one person. Yeah, you might be responsible for everybody, but they're looking at, the organization, the growth of it, and the people and the team around it. So,
That's, very inspiring. And language is a big deal. So you said you're doing public speaking and holding workshops and all that sort of stuff. And you said you've removed I and replaced it with we. Is that something you focus on? The words you actually speak and the impact they actually have?
Yep. 100%. Words speak louder than words. I mean, words, they hurt more than a sword. I think there was a quote that says words cut deeper than any blade. And that's a fact, because I could get beat up today, right? But words are going to hurt me because I'm able to think about those words. This person really said this to me, or this person really said this to me. So they have an effect on people a lot more than you think. So now when I speak, I'm careful with the words that I use. Whether I'm speaking to students, whether I'm speaking to teachers, whether I'm speaking to my board, where I'm speaking to my team, it's those careful words that you make sure you don't say, because once you say a word, it's hard to backtrack, and people aren't going to forget that ever. So I think, obviously I'm still building on that, and I'm still going to build on that, but that's why it's so important to read books, listen to podcasts, listen to leaders that you like, listen to people that you think are successful, or you think are role models, or you want to build your life around. Listen to those people, see the words that they use. So very important, I would say. I've always been a really good speaker, I would say. And that's just because I've spoken a lot. But now that I'm in this stage of my life, I'm I can't just talk just to talk anymore. I need to talk with purpose. I need to talk with conviction. So if I say something, I'm not going to go back on it. If I say I'm going to do this, I want to make sure that I do it. So yeah, it's very important to make sure you're holding yourself accountable for the words that you are putting out there.
And you do it very well, I have to admit. I love it. The way you speak and the way you communicate and the words you used. Love it. It's great. It's very inspiring.
Thank you.
2 places I want to finish. We're going for a while here.
Yeah.
Don't know which one I want to finish with. Let's go. If you could get convinced, well, you had ultimate power over every single person, every Australian, and you had to get them to do one single thing every single day, like whether it's health, wellness, whatever it is, but every single Australian had to do that one thing every single day, what would that be?
Very good question. I'd say every morning that you get up, put a to-do list together. That's what I would say. Like, obviously, like, that's what I would say, because the more that you put things down on paper and you look at it, that's the first step. And then the next step is actually doing it. And if you start to, enjoy ticking that box off. So yeah, that's what I'd say to, all Australians, is that every single morning, put together a to-do list on how your day is going to look like, And it doesn't matter what level you're at. You don't need to be a boss or CEO. You don't need to be working. You don't need to just, because I know you know what you want to do, but it's just about doing it, right? So if you write it down in the morning and you say, oh, okay, I'm going to call this person, this person, this person. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go swim. I'm going to go run. If you put those things down, it becomes so much easier, because it's no longer just in your brain now. And so it can get lost in your brain, right? But if you write it down on something, or your phone, or whatever it is, that's going to constantly remind you that you need to get this done. So that's the advice that I'd give to everybody. And that's the advice I still try to give myself every day, is like, if you put things that you need to do down, the problem's solved in half. The other half is just doing it.
I had a guest on a couple of weeks ago, John, who has made a journal, and it's available, and he sent me a couple of copies. A great journal, absolutely love it. And the first thing up the top is your top 3.
Yeah.
So list out your top 3 things you need to do today. And I've started doing that again, and it does make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Not only, like you said, it just gets you thinking about your day, about your life, and it can be just, sometimes it's just a prompt into journaling and just put my words on paper. So yeah, love that.
Yeah.
You said during COVID,
Yeah.
It was a blessing in disguise, and you could find yourself in that time. Have you found yourself?
Nah. I would say I found my purpose.
And what's that?
My purpose is, I think, being the best version of myself. Obviously, my drive is my community. My drive is my family. But ultimately, your purpose is your life. It's you. That's your purpose. It's being the best version of yourself in everything that you do. I used to think my purpose was my community. I used to think my purpose was, helping back home, things like that. And I think that's fine to have that. But your purpose needs to be building you so that you can do that. Because if I say that is my purpose, right? And I think this is why, like, now having reflected on everything, right? I'm able to look and be like, okay, if that's constantly my purpose, right? What if it doesn't go right? Now you're going to start to find problems and cracks within your purpose, right? Because you are not right. So I think, your purpose needs to be yourself and being the best version of yourself.
Okay, follow up. So I guess either way you look at it, like, have you found yourself, or what does success look like? Like, what is success? And how do you know that you've found yourself?
Yeah, I think, I've definitely found myself in terms of I know the type of person that I want to be, or I'm going to be. And what success looks like for me is obviously being able to help my community integrate successfully in Australia, across the board, all of Australia. I really want the South Sudanese community to feel like Australia is home, to feel like they're loved, to feel like they're contributing. That's definitely, one of the things that I would say success looks like for me. And that could be through NextGen Unite. That could be through my public speaking. That could be through, maybe one day getting into politics. It can look like a number of different ways, but ultimately that's what I want my life to kind of look like. And in the, later on in my life, definitely be able to hopefully give back to my country back home. That's definitely something I'll look forward to as well.
Well, I think with what you're doing, everything you're doing, it's definitely going to come. So I definitely think you're going to succeed. If people want to join in, follow your journey or contact you, where can they find you?
They can contact me on our social media, Mamuch Chuol. I'm very responsive to all my DMs. I'm also on LinkedIn, Mamuch Chuol. And then if you would like to reach out to our organization, our website is ngu.org.au.
Sweet. Mamuch, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate you having me on.